Yeah.
Yep, it's right here.
All right. As a reminder, Maryland will play tomorrow in the first game scheduled for 2 p.m. Against George Mason. Tonight we have head coach Rob Vaughn and student athlete Nick LaRusso. We will start with an opening statement from coach and then take questions for Nick.
Yeah, just tough game. Tough game. I mean, going up against the number one team in the country, they played like a Rhett Lauder was absolutely outstanding. I mean, his stuff was good. Outside of Nicky Lowe getting him a couple times, there wasn't many mistakes there. He was outstanding. Their offense was outstanding. You know, a pretty good game there until the seventh. You know, it's a 9-3 game. You go to the bullpen, kind of had the bases loaded. You have a chance to get yourself back in, and we just couldn't quite get that big swing. And you know, Ray made a really good pitch to get out of that inning. Or Massey, I'm sorry. Massey made a good pitch to get out of that inning, and then just couldn't quite get it going. Couldn't stop it after that. So tough night, but we got to bounce back quick. Nobody's going to feel sorry for us, George Mason in particular. So we got to get in bed and get ready to go and come out and get after them a little bit tomorrow.
Questions for Nick?
Yeah, Nick, just some of what makes Lauder so good. Is it the stops and how long he mixes the pitches? What is it that makes him?
Yeah, it's just you know, a guy like that, when he can command, you know, his 3 pitches and throw it in any count, I think that's the biggest thing. You know, there were times where I was in advantage counts and, you know, normally you'd see the heater, but you know, he fooled me a couple of times on throwing the changeup, and I feel like that was one of his better pitches tonight. You know, the ability to you know, tunnel the same pitches as well. You know, his fastball, changeup, and slider all came from the same slot and all, you know, broke different directions. So he's a very effective pitcher.
Just what the heck did you guys do for 4 hours and 45 minutes while waiting for this game to start?
And just playing some games that we know, and you know, just bonding all together.
How excited were you guys to get the word that the game was going to be playing? I'm assuming you all wanted to play baseball.
Oh, very excited. You know, waiting around all day. It was definitely tough, but you know, once we got the nod, very exciting.
Nick, did you feel like it was going to be the team that came out with the most energy early that was going to win this game?
I just felt like it was going to be the team that, you know, kept that energy, you know, throughout the whole entire game. Maybe not in the first, but you know, Wake, you know, they kind of had the momentum from the jump and kind of stayed with it, you know, and they fed into that crowd pretty well tonight.
Nick, you had those 2 home runs against Lauder, felt like almost touching them. When you hit those home runs, was there some sort of message in the dugout like this guy isn't like invincible and whatnot?
Yeah, exactly. You know, just getting the first one off the board was definitely big, but you know, we communicate a lot, and you know what he's throwing, and you could tell in the first inning he had more juice than, you know, he did say in the 4th and 5th. So you know, I told the guys, you know, he's, you know, slowing down just a little bit, but he was still very effective, and you know, we ended up putting, you know, 2 more across in the 7th when he came back out there, but you know, overall he was very effective throughout the whole game.
Nick, you mentioned the Wake Forest crowd. What factor do you think that was, not just for you guys, but also in terms of any guys in the whole team?
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it just creates energy for that home crowd. It you know, at times could you know, speed up, you know, some of our guys as well, but you know, I thought we did a good job kind of, you know, pushing the crowd aside, but you know, you could definitely tell the hitters and the pitchers fed into that for Wake.
Anything else for Nick? All right, thanks, Nick. Yeah, I think Sam's gonna put you out. Yeah. Questions for coach?
But I assume you know, what manager job can be available tomorrow. Bill hasn't gone yet. You know, how do you plan to attack tomorrow knowing who you have there, who you don't? Obviously, you know, you want to beat George Mason, you're not overlooking them, but you'd like to save some guys for, you know, potentially Wake tomorrow night. How do you
Yeah, I think, you know, we talked about how important it is obviously to stay on the winner side if you can. You know, now that you're on the other side, it's really you just survive in advance. I told our guys in that situation, I said, you know, after the game, we're gonna do what we got to do to win game 1, and then we'll regroup. I don't care if I have to pitch game 2 against Wake. We'll figure that out. But you don't get to stay together for another game if you don't go through Mason. And they're in bed, they're sleeping, they're in a good spot, and they're playing some darn good baseball. Man, that Northeastern team they smacked earlier today is a really good team. So they're playing good baseball. They're confident. They're 30 minutes down the road. I can tell you they would love to end our season tomorrow. So we're going to do whatever we got to do to win that one. then we'll take a look at the drawing board and see what the heck's there and try to go get after them in the second one if we're fortunate enough to get there.
That's it. Coach, after, waiting so long to play this game, do you feel like the way Wake Forest came out in the first game was a little bit of a punch to the gut?
Yeah, I mean, it's the number one team in the country that just played like the number one team in the country. That's what it was, and I mean, Rhett Louder, I've been doing this for a little while now. I mean, I've said all along, like I said, I did an interview this year before the year started, and I said Thomas Harrington's the best arm I've seen in 11 years. That's not even close to the best arm I've seen in the opposing dugout since I've been coaching. I mean, his stuff was electric. He throws all strikes. They all go different directions. He's got poise, but he's got intensity. I mean, that guy's going to pitch in the big leagues, make a lot of money one day, probably here pretty dang soon. Pretty special arm. And then their offense, it did what their offense did. I mean, that's why they're number one. They've got elite level pitching. They've got an elite offense, and they were relentless tonight. And they had great energy from the jump and kind of put us on our heels early. And when you got Rhett Louder on the mound and give him a 4 spot in the first, you got your work cut out. And I thought we competed to get ourselves back in it. But we just couldn't quite get that blow to get some of our older, more veteran arms in the game late to try to keep it close.
Plus,
It's just how frustrating was it to have to sit and wait so long to play, and how do you think your guys kind of handled that piece of things today?
Yeah, it's tough, especially when you're sitting there and it's blue skies out there, but I think it's the right call. I think, me and Walt, along with the NCAA staff, kind of looked at it and said, there's a really good chance we get out here and we're going to play for 30 minutes and we're going to burn Rhett and Dean. I don't think either one of us wanted that. It's not good for the game. It's not good for either one of our teams. So I think it was the right call to do what we did. And I honestly thought our guys handled it well. I'm sitting in there and, when they're playing whatever they're playing in there that college kids play and they're having fun. And I'm like, you know what, I'm watching Matt Shaw in the middle of that. And I literally looked at our coach. I said, here pretty soon in a couple of years, like some of these other guys are going to be sitting saying they remember sitting in that thing playing Mafia with Matt Shaw leading the way, who's going to be playing the big league. So I thought they handled it well. I don't think the delay affected us in a negative way. I thought we just got smacked by a really good team tonight.
How surprising was it for you to get out there and to see a Wake Forest crowd come back to the stadium and with the ferocity that
Yeah.
they did as well?
I mean, they had a few more hours to tailgate. They were ready to go. They were awesome tonight. I didn't know what it was going to be like. We played Wake here in 2017 in the regional, and I can tell you they had a darn good team then, and it wasn't even remotely like this from a crowd perspective. And I think that's a tribute to what Walt and his coaching staff have built here. I mean, they put a winner on the field, and the community showed up and supported them. And when we walked back on, there was like 5 people in the stands. Was like, all right, we're ready to go. And then 30 minutes later, it was rocking. So credit to them. That's a product of what this coaching staff has built here. And man, they do a great job. And those guys were electric tonight.
we'll go middle front and then second row left.
That's 6 runs, 7th inning for Wake. They only had 1 hit in that inning. When you're just struggling with command issues like that, is it, one, how do you overcome that? But 2, is there kind of a silver lining in saying, a lot of these runs were kind of self-inflicted?
Well, I don't know if I'd call it a silver lining. I appreciate you trying to find a positive spin on that, Taylor. That makes me feel better. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because, you're in that position and, you look at Wake's pitching staff, they got a lot of elite arms. I mean, Manasseh's coming in a 21-6 game, throwing 100. Like, they're good, man. They've got a lot of depth on the mound. And again, that's a credit to their recruiting and how they've done that. And, there's no secret. We don't have quite as much depth as they do on the mound. And, you don't want to bring some of those guys in when you're down 7 or 8 and you're facing the arms you're going to face. Because it's an uphill battle and you got a long fight to get back in it. So you're trying to be strategic about it. And, some of it's youth and some of it's some young guys that just maybe aren't ready for that moment yet, but you got to get them out there and see what you got. Some of it is just kind of a failure to execute, so I don't really think there's a silver lining there. I think it's just, kind of the way it works. If you make a team line up and go hit you, this team might do it because those guys can really hit, but you wish you'd have made them earn a tick more than that. But at the same time, they own the zone. They had really professional approaches. And I tell you what, it's not easy. In a 21-6 game, those guys weren't giving away at bats. And again, that's the reason that they're the number 1 team in the country right now, is they stayed hooked in the whole time. And that's how that thing turns into a pretty messy game at the end.
We'll go second row left.
You kept Nick Dean into the game after losing him pretty quite early. The bullpen was well on. first. Can you kind of explain that decision to keep him in what you told him during the round visit?
Yeah, you're in that situation. You're trying to look at one of two things. Number one, a lot of times starters get better as they go. Sometimes that first inning's a little bit of a bear. And you're also trying to see a little bit like, are we going to be able to get to Rhett? If we could have got to Louder and a little bit earlier and maybe tied it a little bit quicker, maybe you go get Nicky a little bit earlier. But the way he was throwing the ball tonight, we needed some length because the more outs you have to get against that lineup, it's tough. It's tough to get outs against that lineup. And so, as long as he was doing that, we were like, you know what, that's less outs we got to get on the back end. So I thought Nicky did a good job of competing through it. And he didn't have great feel for his stuff tonight. And I think, Wake did a great job of kind of punishing him for it. Didn't have great feel for his secondary stuff, but we needed as much length as we could out of him so that you're not having to throw Falco, Lippman, Johnson, some of those guys, knowing that we needed them. And, if we could, we were a swing away. You have the bases loaded, 2 outs there. If we go split a gap, Dave Falco was coming into the game, and if you're playing a 1 or 2 run game against that team, you feel like you can maybe send it a little bit, but when you're chasing 7 or 8 runs, it's kind of harder to get there. So we just need as much length as we could out of Nicky tonight.
We'll go front row right and then front row middle.
Coach, do you feel like that the middle of the Wake Forest order was kind of tough for Dean, kind of through some, I guess, patches in the start and then kind of faltered when we had those 2 straight RBIs to the middle of the order and then came back around. The same thing happened.
Yeah, I mean, they're just good. I mean, I thought, Tommy Hawk is their tone setter, and that guy plays with energy. That guy's a guy that drives opposing coaches nuts and is your favorite player on the team. I love the way that kid plays, and we were able to control him tonight, which was good. But I mean, navigating Costello, Kurtz, Wilkin, Johnson, Bennett. I mean, where do you breathe? And I think it's just a matter of picking your poison a little bit. And even though Tommy didn't maybe play a huge role on the offside, made a big time play early on that diving play, and that's who knows what happens. That ball gets in a gap, we score a run there, maybe the whole thing changes. So even though he didn't get a knock tonight, he affected the game with his defense there. But I don't think it's just the middle. I think it's just a strain to get through that lineup. And when our lineup's really going the right way, it feels the same way. But Johnson was elite tonight. My goodness, that guy took good swings. Bennett took really good swings. Up and down that lineup. When Wilkins up the plate, it's not comfortable. That guy gets a swing off, and Kurtz is one of the best hitters I've ever seen. So that's just a tough lineup. I don't think there's a place that you can breathe. And I think that's the reason they've won 49 games and they're the number 1 team in the country right now.
It's been a bit of a slow start to the postseason for Matt Shaw in the Big Ten tournament these past 2 games. Just how does he kind of turn that around? If you guys are to win, rattle up 3 wins in a row, how big is he going to be in that?
Oh yeah, there's no secret. You guys have heard me say it 1,000 times. You need your best players to be your best players, and guys have executed to Matty. They've made some really good pitches, and he took a couple good swings late there, and but Rhett really made good pitches to him. Really, really good pitches to him, and it was just tough. Like he's down, he's throwing a ton of strikes, and he was good tonight. But yeah, Matty's fine. That's the beauty of him. The thing I praised about him his whole career is his mental state and the way he approaches every game. And I can promise you that guy's not pressing anymore tomorrow. He's going to come out. He's prepared. He's worked. He's ready. He's going to come out and send it tomorrow. But yeah, there's no secret. We're going to need all those guys. I mean, that game tomorrow at 2:00 or whatever time we're playing is going to be a bear, and we're going to have to come out, and our offense is going to have to be good, and we're going to have to just piece together and see what we got.
You guys will start with Coach. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Coach, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
I feel that.
Game, game six is at six, or sorry, game five is at six.
So it is, the earliest 6 o'clock. And then if like B1 goes long, there has to be 55 minutes in between both the games, so.
The first is a two, right? Is-
2 o'clock, yep,
is
yep,
12.
the first game tomorrow is 2 o'clock.
11 minutes.
2 hours. I would consider that not right.
Maryland Walker hit 14,000 last two.
Justin, you were in a spot, right? Where you had to go do the high school football game and then turn around on that one. Yeah, I remember going, I went to a football game, went to like, got some, that was in that department, we had to do.
Hey, everybody, tonight you're joined by Wake Forest head coach Tom Walker, as well as student athlete Brett Louder. We will start with an opening statement from coach and then take questions for Brett.
Yeah, great win. Again, going 2-0 to start a regional is always a huge advantage. Somebody's got to come through the losers bracket and beat you twice to advance. So obviously love the spot we're in. Rhett came out, was so good so early. That's, those first 6 innings were about as good as I've seen anybody throw the baseball at this level, and was just really impressed with Rhett tonight. And our team offensively got on the board early, stacked some quality at bats there in the first inning against a good pitcher in Dean. Scored 4 in the first and then came out in the third, scored 2 more. Rhett got us a couple big shutdown innings, and we kind of rolled from there. Was really proud of the Deacon Nation that showed up today, coming back the way they did for that 10:45 start. Shout out to Coach Forbes, whose tweet I'm sure motivated at least 500 or 600 people to make the trip back over to the couch. So I just want to thank the Deacon Nation. Great win for our ball club, and it all starts with Rhett Louder. Really proud of him.
We'll start front right here, Brett.
I haven't watched all your starts, but I've seen a good amount. It seemed to me like you were a little more fired up in the first inning than your warm-up tosses. Is that true? And if so, can you elaborate on why?
Yeah, I definitely was a little bit more fired up today. It was a long day, and then just getting on the field, it was, and in this environment, like a regional, everything was here at the couch. There's just a bunch of things that go into it, but no, I was definitely fired up, and the crowd really got me going too.
Was it more the crowd, or was it more self-motivation from you knowing you had to get yourself going for a 10:45 start?
I think it was probably just a combination of all those things. I wouldn't put it specifically and just me having to fire myself up. When we did get that 10:45 first pitch, I instantly got a little bit of a wave of adrenaline going right from there. So I think that might have been a little bit of it too.
Lefter.
Brett, what the heck did you do for like 5 hours, and how did you keep yourself ready to go?
I did a lot of sitting around, but I listened to a lot of music, try to stay locked in, try to keep my body loose, drink a lot of water, but I probably could have done a little bit better job of that. I think it caught up to me in the end, but just try to stay locked in. That's
What
my-
kind of music do you listen to
Oh, I had a,
during this period of time?
well, we had a long delay, so I got to switch it up a little bit. Right after we got pushed back from 6, I was kind of a little bit more mellow, just trying to calm myself down for a little bit, but then I got fired back up about 10 o'clock.
We'll go front middle.
Remember the top three in that Maryland lineup, Schlegel, Shaw, and Russo, it's really the top three. Just what was your kind of your game plan for, for attacking those guys quickly?
Yeah, super good. 1, 2, 3, top of the order, one of the best I probably faced all year. I came out firing, so I was just kind of attacking them early. And I knew I kind of want to keep them off the bases because I knew they probably would do the most damage to the less. Out of those 3 or top 4 that got on base, probably the better off I would be. But I kind of just tried to attack all game. I know I left a couple pitches over the plate for LaRusso, and he did some damage, but it didn't hurt us too bad because I got the guys before him most of the time.
That's it. Rhett, I know you mentioned leaving the 2 pitches over the plate for LaRusso. Was there kind of anything specific that you saw in those at-bats against him? And then can you walk me through just that kind of flip in the 7th inning as well? It seemed like you were fatigued at the end.
Yeah, so the 2 pitches to LaRusso, the first one I shook to a slider, which he's decent on sliders, but it's just he's a good hitter in general. So if you make a mistake over the plate, he's gonna do some damage on it. And I kind of left that one, backed it up right over the heart of the plate, and that's gonna happen to a good hitter like that. And then in that 7th inning, I left the fastball, kind of ran back over the plate, a pretty good at bat. It was 3-2, and I was pretty tired. So that tends to happen when I get a little bit more fatigued. I let balls drift back over the middle of the plate, which I wasn't really surprised that was my miss there. I think it was like a lot of things. It was first time pitching at 1:30 in the morning. I probably could have ate a little bit more throughout the day, but I kind of just hit a wall right there and gave it everything I had.
How surprising was it for you, and I guess you would speak for the team in general, to see how the crowd came back and were so vibrant?
Oh, it was awesome. I can still hear like the 2-strike chants and everything that kept me going. I was like, it's great. And we're so grateful to have, like, especially at this late start, a lot of uncertainty today. So to have that amount of people and be that loud this late, it was awesome. Like you're going to be talking about that forever, probably.
You guys good with Brett? One more.
Just really quickly, I guess last year, you guys lost in the regional competition to Maryland. Was any of that, I guess, a driving factor, or I guess was this just kind of business as usual as you got here?
You can probably look at it a couple ways. We try to take it business as usual, but there's definitely a lot of like angst from last year. But I think going into the game, we just try to take it as any other game, any other opponent. When you're out there, we just had to play a good style of baseball, and we knew that we would come out on top. So I think that we just stick to our game plan. We're going to be a tough team to beat.
Awesome. Thanks, Brett. And Ryan, can you get that?
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ryan. Questions for coach?
Yeah, sure. That's it. Well, do you feel like you're going to need to have Steve Forbes come to the locker room before every game now?
I don't know that we'll need him every game, but he's welcome anytime he wants to come. Because he had our guys fired up, and we needed it. We needed a little shot of adrenaline. I was pumped to see him in there.
Second round. You played both George Mason and Maryland already. If you had to pick, who would you rather face tomorrow?
That's a great question. I mean, I think again, I don't know that I'd have a pick on that. I think both are really good teams, obviously, that have had great years, and both are tough and well coached. So, whoever we play is going to give us all we can handle. I'm sure of that.
Did you get a sense with the rain delay that the winner of this game was probably going to be the team that kind of hit first, that really threw kind of that first punch? And how big was it that it was, your team, the first inning, really with a big first punch?
Yeah, for sure. We talk about momentum all the time. I mean, keeping the momentum on our dugout, is huge. And, Rhett coming out there and throwing the ball like he did in the first inning was a huge momentum boost. And then we score 4, and the momentum kind of stayed that way. And then they kind of grabbed a little bit of momentum there with the LaRusso homer, and they get 2 guys on with nobody out. And then Massey comes in and strikes out 3, walks a guy in there after 2 outs. But Massey comes in there, gets us 3 huge outs, and kind of threw the momentum back into our dugout. So, again, momentum is, when you're dealing with college kids, 18 to 22-year-old kids, I mean, momentum is everything.
Less than kind
John, I'm curious about, in a 21-6 using Cam and Ossie tonight, what was the thought process there? Then kind of who do you have on the board for tomorrow night's game?
Yeah, the thought process was we're hoping that tomorrow, we want to go Josh Hartle, and then if we can get a lead, we're going to go right to Sean Sullivan to close out the game. And I didn't want to have that game where, we're trying to force Manasi in there at the end of the game, so if we can close it out tomorrow, I didn't want to feel like we had to pitch Manasi, so it wouldn't be 2 weeks since he's thrown in the super. So, again, if we can get a good start out of Josh Hartle and then go right to Sully to close it out, that's what we're going to do. Now, if we're behind, we might save Sully to start, the Monday game, and we might just pitch that a little differently, but I don't see a scenario where, we would use Manasi or Massey tomorrow. If we have to, obviously we will, but I think it's more likely that it'll be Hartle right to Sullivan to try to finish it out that way.
Well, I heard you talk for 3 years about Rhett, and kind of it takes him an inning or two sometimes to get the changeup established and get the feel for it. Is the secret getting a 10:45 start and having him so fired up with adrenaline?
No, again, well, in the first, I didn't think he really had his good changeup in the first, but then starting in the second, he really had his good changeup. It was kind of more slider in the first. But after that, his changeup was as good as I've seen it. And again, I've been telling you guys for a while that I think you're going to see Rhett take it to a new gear once he hit the postseason. I think he remembers his start last year. And I think he went out there and wanted to show the world who he was, and he did that. And probably shouldn't have started him out there in the seventh because, if I had known, we didn't realize that he hadn't eaten anything in 5 hours. So I think he just kind of ran out of gas. So if I knew what I knew, I probably wouldn't have run him out there in the seventh.
Yeah, right here. Coach, your pitching staff's obviously elite. Do you feel like that sometimes when you put up 21 runs and feel like you're on this extra point? Do you feel like that sometimes your offense gets, underrated or in the midst of like such great pitching?
Yeah, I think sometimes, again, look at the day we had offensively today. I mean, you look at the middle of our order, Kurtz, Wilkin, Johnson, Bennett, and Bennett Lee had great at-bats all day, so like 3 through 7, we had a great day offensively today. And even Danny Corona had a couple of hits, had a big hit with the bases loaded, then obviously had a home run late. So, really 3 through 8 in the lineup, we did a really great job today. So, yeah, I do think at times our offense gets a little overlooked, but again, we believe in our offense and we know how good it is.
the less here to wrap us up.
What the heck does Tom Walter do for 5 hours during a rain delay? And was there ever a concern for you that the game might not get in tonight? And if so, what the heck would that look like?
Yeah, I would have, there was concern that it wasn't going to get in. I'm glad we were able to get it in, obviously. And the worry about not getting it in truthfully was if Rhett had to pitch tomorrow, then all of a sudden, if you are fortunate enough to get to a super, then it starts to impact when he can pitch next weekend. Like if he throws on Sunday, you can't bring him back on Friday, so then you're kind of locked in throwing Seth Keener on Friday, in the super and you're hoping to get through with, again, having Sullivan and all those guys. So point of the matter is it's huge for us. If we can advance to next weekend, having gotten this one in today is huge.
And then what did you do during all those times?
I watched a lot of college baseball games. I was watching the Clemson Tennessee game. What an unbelievable game that was. Both teams played so great. I'm just a feel for Clemson because they played fantastic baseball and Tennessee just came out on top. But so I watched a bunch of college baseball, looked at a little more film on Maryland, and again, I didn't listen to any music like Rhett did. I surrounded myself with college baseball.
All right, thanks. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Coach's miracle. Good enough.
Yeah, I think he's fine. It's just caught his funny bone.
Thank you.
Oh my God. You guys in like 2 hours.